In this video, I'm going to show you how to root an Android phone. Having a rooted phone is really important if you're wanting to do a lot of the things that I talk about on this channel, because it gives you root permissions and allows you to access a lot of the parts of the file system on the mobile device that you wouldn't have if you didn't have root. I've talked about Android emulators on this channel before, and those are great if you're just like a beginner and maybe you don't have access to physical devices. You can get pretty far just with emulators, but having a physical rooted device is going to give you a lot more freedom and let you do a lot of things that you might not be able to do with that emulator. So for this video, I'm going to be rooting a Nexus 5X device, but this process can actually be used for any Nexus or Google Pixel device. Since those Nexus and Pixel devices are directly from Google, it is a little bit more of a simple process to root those phones. Maybe in the future, I'll make another video about rooting a Samsung or some other kind of device, but for this video, I'm going to specifically cover how to root a Nexus or a Pixel device. Normally, when I would be working with a physical device like this, I would try to do a screen share so it would just be easier to see what I'm doing on the device. But because we're going to have to reboot the device and do a couple other things that are going to make it difficult to screen capture, I'm just going to use an overhead camera, and hopefully you'll just be able to see well enough what I'm doing on the device as I'm moving around the menus. But the first thing we need to do is enable USB debugging. So to do that, we're going to go to the menu and go to System, and then About Phone. And don't worry if your menus don't look exactly like this. It may be slightly different depending on what version of Android you're using and what device and all that. But the important thing is to find where it has the build number of your device. And when you find that build number, you're going to tap it 7 times. And you may have been able to see right there that it popped up a little toast at the bottom of the screen that says you are now a developer. So when we go back to the System menu, we now see a new option that's listed that says Developer Options. And when we open that Developer Options menu, now we're going to be able to enable USB debugging. This is going to allow us to interact with our phone over a USB cable plugged into our PC. So after you've enabled USB debugging, then you can plug in your device into your PC with a USB cable, and then you can run this command adb devices. Once you do that, you should see this box pop up on your phone that says allow USB debugging. And we can click OK. And now if we run that command again, now instead of saying unauthorized next to our device, it says device. And this will allow us to run those ADB commands and drop into a shell and do whatever we need to do with our device, whether that's pull or push files to and from the device, install new apps, whatever we want to do. However, you may notice that when I run that shell command, there's a $sign prompt here instead of a £sign, which is what you would see if you were on a rooted device. And if I try to run su not found. Su stands for super user, and that allows us to run those root level commands that we don't have permission to run right now. And if we were to move to the data directory and try to run an ls, permission denied. And that's because our device isn't rooted, so we don't have permission to view those files in the data directory. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that there have been several things that I've done, like preparing certificates for Burp Suite proxying or installing Frida or different kinds of things that do require that root permission. So if you don't have a rooted device, you can't do any of those things. So the first thing we need to root our device is the factory image for our device. So Google provides a super helpful page where you can download the factory image for pretty much any Nexus or Pixel device. Since I'm using a Nexus 5X device, I'm going to scroll down to Bullhead for Nexus 5X. And I'm going to go down to the most recent version of this factory image that they have available, which is 8.1.0, and I'm going to click on link to download that image. Once you download that factory image, you should have a zip file that has the name of that image. So I'm going to run unzip to extract those files. Once I extract those files, I should see another zip file inside that directory that I just extracted. So I'm going to run unzip to extract those files as well. After that, you should have a boot.img file inside that directory. Once you have that file, you're going to use ADB to push that file onto the file system of your Android device. I'm going to push that file to my download directory by using ADB push, that file name, and then /SD card /download. The next thing we need is Magisk, which is an open source tool that you can get off GitHub. I'll have the links to all these things in the description if you want to check them out. So once I go to the Magisk GitHub page, I'm going to go to releases and look at the most recent release, which at the time of recording is version 26.1. And I'm going to scroll down and find the Magisk version 26.1 APK. Once I have that APK downloaded, I'm going to install it onto my Android device by running adb install and then the name of that APK. Once we have that Magisk app installed and we have that boot image downloaded onto our device, we're going to go back to our mobile device and we're going to run that Magisk app. Once you open that app, you should see this page that has that install button at the top right corner. Click on install, then you should see this page, and then you can click next. Then you should see select and patch a file. We're going to click that. And then in our downloads folder on our local device, we should see that boot.image file that we just moved to our device. I'm going to select that device and then click Let's Go. That should just take about a minute or so, and then it should say at the bottom, output file is written to, and then it will have a path to a file that starts with Magisk patched. And if we go back to our terminal and run that adb shell command, we can go to the download directory and run ls, and then we can see that Magisk patched file that just got created. Now that that file is created, we need to pull it from our Android device onto our PC. We're going to do this by running adb pull and then the path to that file. After we pull that file, now we need to reboot our device into fast boot mode. And we're going to do this by running the command adb reboot bootloader. Again, your device could look a little bit different than this depending on what kind of device it is, but you should see some sort of menu that resembles this in some way. Now you can see at the bottom that my device is already unlocked, but if the bootloader of your device is still locked, you will need to run another command that will unlock it. And that command is going to be fastboot flashing unlock. I got an error when I ran that because mine is already unlocked, but if yours wasn't unlocked, that should unlock it. Once your bootloader is unlocked, then we're going to run fastboot flash boot and then that Magisk patched file that we just created a few minutes ago. After that process completes, then you can just start up your device normally. So again, let's try dropping into an adb shell, and you'll see that again we have this $ prompt, which means we are not root. And if we go to the data directory and then hit ls, again we get permission denied because we're not root. But if we try to run su again, which will give us those super user permissions, this time instead of just outright denying us, it popped up this super user request, and we can click grant. And now you see, instead of having that $ prompt, we now have this £, which means that we are root. And if we run who am I, we are root, and we can run that ls, so we can now access those files in the data directory. So now we have full root permission on our device, and we can do all those things like install Frida and access different parts of the file system to install certificates and give anything we want, whatever permissions we need to have. But like I said at the beginning, if you're just a beginner and you don't have a bunch of extra phones lying around, then an emulator is fine. You can do a lot of things with an emulator and get a lot of good practice that way. But if you are actually trying to have a career in this and wanting to test a bunch of different apps and do maybe bug bounty hunting or anything like that, a physical device can be very important to give you that full coverage and being able to see everything you need to see. And for your testing purposes, I would recommend getting a Nexus or a Pixel device that is directly from Google, just because that makes it a bit easier to do things like this because they have that support directly from Google, as opposed to phones from like Samsung and other manufacturers.